So I am Brian Graf. I am DevRel Manager at NetApp Instaclustr.
And I'm Alex Bunday, and I'm the OpenSearch Product Manager at NetApp Instaclustr.
Here you go. I'll let you take over for a minute.
So, this being an open source conference, we thought we might open source a few icebreakers you might like to use while having conversations. Now, this probably would have been more helpful on day one, I realize, than day 3, but we're going to do it anyway. So I came here looking for answers. You look like a top result. That could be a good one. If this conversation goes well, I'll rank you number 1 in my heart. I tried to visualize my life in a dashboard. It crashed. And I'm not lost, I'm just poorly indexed. So, very cheesy, but feel free to use those if the opportunity comes up.
Awesome. So over the next 20 minutes, we're going to break this down into about five to six different areas of discussion. So first, we're going to talk about what it looks like for us when a customer has a pain point or a challenge, and then the process of obviously going from that to a pull request and having this turn into something upstream. But what happens in between? So a customer has a problem, we'll talk about what that is, and then we'll talk about how we triage these asks, and then we'll go on to making the actual changes, doing the coding, doing the development work, and applying the fixes to our customers. We'll talk more about that here on the next slide as well, and then initiating that pull request with the open source projects, and then we'll talk about the key benefits of why we do this and invite you as well to do something similar. So all this maybe makes more sense if you know a little bit about NetApp Instaclustr and what we do. So as you can see up here, we have a number of different technologies. In NetApp Instaclustr, we provide managed services for these technologies. What that means is you choose the open source technology, you choose the cloud that you want it in, and we will run those inside of your cloud accounts. Okay? And something that also stands out here is that we do pure open source. So rather than using open source and then building on top of that something else for our customers, everything that we do is pure open source. And this is beneficial because if for whatever reason the customer has other clusters somewhere else or that aren't managed by us, or they decide to change where they're hosting this, they have full flexibility. They maintain control of the data, and it's theirs to work with. The other thing we do is consulting. Oh, sorry. Oh, that was bullet 4. So when we run this for customers, one of the things is, well, what all is included with that? Well, you deploy your cluster, the technology you choose, and then our teams monitor that. They do security scans, they do patches, they do upgrades, and whether that's scaling out or scaling up, we do all the hard and heavy lifting so that the customers can build and use the applications in a nutshell. And then consulting on the side. So if there's additional things around projects, implementations, we have a consulting professional services team that handles that. So how does this all tie in to our talk? Well, what matters here is that because this is all pure open source and we run this for our customers, when customers have problems and issues, we can then take those issues and those asks and bring those back around for the entire community.
Yep, over to me. So when a customer has a challenge or a need, obviously we work with a number of customers, very large enterprise customers, where OpenSearch is mission critical for them. Sometimes they will encounter a challenge or an issue when they're building or scaling OpenSearch. So a recent example that comes to mind, our customer asks in relation to cross-cluster replication, if an index gets deleted on the leader cluster, we would also like to have that index deleted on the follower cluster. So you may or may not know what that means, may or may not know what that means, but the important part is that I guess we do, because we're open source specialists, and then we'll work to understand what actually needs to be changed in the application to support this request from the customer. So at this point, we kind of have 2 options. So we could just, I guess, fork the code and fix it ourselves, and just run our own version of OpenSearch that works perfectly for all our customers. But what we'd prefer to do is to contribute this upstream so that everyone benefits from the change. So we have the 2 options. I guess we have our internal engineering capability, We have teams of people that work on OpenSearch, but we also have people that work on the open source side.
So, a bug, something that we find in our operations side, from our operations team in the open source projects, a bug that maybe customers find, or a feature request that comes from the customers, all right? That comes to us, so then what, right? Next step here is to triage those requests. Especially if we have multiple requests, we need to figure out whether or not it's a bug or a feature request and deal with it appropriately, and then also figure out who would be handling this. So every single request that comes in, whether it's a bug or a feature request, goes to the team, and we look at this and we go, okay, is this something that we can take on right now? How does this affect the community? How does this help our customers? And then we determine, I said that already, we determine whether it's a feature or a bug, because it's going to determine kind of a little bit of how we handle that. And then our engineers collaborate more. So it's like, all right, we have this ask. Now, part of going out and adding to an open source project is finding out, is anyone else working on this, right? The last thing you want to do is be building something that is the same as somebody else. So is someone else building this? Does someone else want to collaborate? And just gathering more requirements, okay? Then at that point, we bring this back to our team, and if it's our open source engineer, Munir here, check out the glasses. I spent about 5 minutes doing this animation here. I'm pretty proud of it. Oh, sorry, let's try this again. Ready? I wanted the music, but I didn't know if it would be appropriate for this conference, so I gave him the glasses here. Munir is our OpenSearch, open source engineer who works on these, as well as we have our internal dev teams as well. But we work on developing a solution. Send that to him for me, please. And then, Munir and our team will then attend the correct, like the triaging sessions, and make sure that this gets through the open source projects to completion, to where we can put this in as a pull request, and that's prioritized for future versions of the project. And then also letting our customers know, hey, this is what we're working on, this is what we've done, here's our progress, and setting correct expectations. So I think one of the things with this is that not only are we working on this, but we need to make sure that the people that are asking for it, the people that want it, have a clear understanding and expectation. Sometimes the need is very urgent, sometimes it's just a nice to have, but either way, setting those expectations is very important.
So from here, what we'll do is we do have our own sort of internal branch of OpenSearch that we can deploy for the customer. And we do this for a couple of reasons. So as Brian said, sometimes it is quite an urgent thing, and we may not be able to wait for the community to triage and work through that request. So we will deploy it directly to that customer. And that allows us to also apply those urgent fixes before they're merged upstream. Obviously, we want to make sure that those changes flow through eventually, but it does give us a bit more flexibility. So once that fix is applied, we'll then tell the customer, hey, like this thing has been added or fixed for you. And then we may also, depending on what version they're running of OpenSearch, if it's an older version, we may need to backport those changes as well. Again, we prefer not to, but that's an option that we have. We'll also let them know that the status, I suppose, of how that change is being worked on in the open source code, and let them know when it's been merged into the main project. Then we'll make so that the pull request will go into the OpenSearch repository. So Munir, our engineer, will be working on this, and the PR will be initiated so that change can be then merged once it's been approved. And once that next version is released, then everyone can benefit from this fix. So it's a really good thing to do. So you might be asking, well, why, as a managed service provider, why do we do this? There's a number of reasons. Our customer wins can turn into wins for everyone. So we can fix problems that we can make the overall product better for everyone by sort of resolving our customer problems. We also get more ownership and engagement with the community. So we're contributing, we have that engagement and that ownership of what we're doing. The really good thing about open source, I think we all know about this, but is the ability to sort of reduce reliance on one sort of commercial entity. So we're sort of reducing that risk and reducing the reliance on third parties to respond, which is a really good thing as well. The open source nature of OpenSearch allows us to customize it to the customer's needs, so we can take it and do what we need to do. And also some things that might not be on the open source roadmap or a priority for the project, they can still be important to our customers. So we still have that ability to make that change and make it a priority. I think the best thing about all of this is that real-life customer problems are being folded back into the project. So the project itself is benefiting from having exposure to real-life customer use cases. And as we make these changes, it's adapting and making it more suitable for everyone.
Do you have anything else you want to say on that slide?
No.
Okay, awesome. Cool, so if we wanted to look at this holistically, as we kind of talked very briefly through each of the steps, we kind of took a little Canva experience here. So if we wanted to break it down into steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, really this comes down to every company is going to be a little bit different. Every project is going to be slightly different. But at the end of the day, the process of going from that initial bug to getting this back into the open source project is going to be relatively the same. So in this case for us, the customer has a problem and they let us know. Customers are really good at letting us know when they have issues, right? Customers, anytime we have anything, as in, I complain about things on Twitter about brands and things, so people make these things known. Whether that's found by them or found by us, we want to make a difference. So then you take that, you triage it, you figure out what the scope is. It's obviously really important, especially if you're an individual contributor, to know how much you're biting off. And how long you think that's going to take. And then as you start to work on that, like we said before, some of these things can be fast, easy fixes, and some of these things can take a lot longer. I'm going to talk on the next slide about some other ways to contribute to open source projects. In these cases, these are kind of bigger fixes, right? But there are plenty of other ways you can contribute and have pull requests accepted for things like OpenSearch. Once we go through that, we give that to the customer immediately because we want to fix that pain point quickly, and it may be 8 weeks or 16 weeks or whatever until this is actually pulled in, approved and pulled into the actual project. And we want the customers to be able to take advantage of that as soon as possible. And then along the way, we're just making sure that we're working with, in this case, OpenSearch and that team to make sure that this makes it into the next release. So, with that being said, how can you contribute? So you're all here because you're interested in hearing how we did it, but I'm guessing that part of it is because maybe you're interested in contributing in some way. And if that's true, if that's you in this case, how do you get started contributing to OpenSearch? So the first thing is to go to the OpenSearch GitHub repo. And there's two main documents that are important with any of these because it tells you kind of how this project does certain things. And that's the onboarding and the contributing docs. And in those, they will give you instructions on how you can contribute. So that's kind of the how to start. Next thing you need to do, fork the repo so you can begin working with that. But what's important is that you open an issue on something that you're interested in trying. Because like I said earlier, it may be possible that someone else, just like you or another company or somebody in the industry, has a similar thought or idea and is already working on something. It's possible that there's something that's already 90% of the way done. And it's possible that nobody has even considered this. So the two sides to this are you can either team up with somebody or you can save yourself time if this is already happening, or it can create dialogue to determine whether that's the right path for that feature or that functionality to go. So opening a PR at the very beginning, or sorry, opening an issue at the very beginning can very much help you in terms of collaboration and in creating things that are really helpful. And then the other piece of this is get involved in the community. So OpenSearch has a Slack channel. The community is fantastic. They have monthly community calls. There are user groups. Get involved, get active, find people that have same and similar interests as you. So this is kind of the how this stuff works, But the last thing I wanted to point out really quick, and any other comments that you have as well, is we've talked about features, but there's so many other ways to contribute. Have any of you ever submitted a PR for changing documentation or adding documentation? Couple, yeah. Super easy. You don't have to be a developer, right? It could even be changes for misspellings and punctuation, right? Get your first pull request in and approved. It could be that you create samples. So what you'll see with OpenSearch too is that a lot of the initial documentation there's still kind of a gap there because of the fork with Elastic. Okay, so if people are newer to this and they're trying to find some of that documentation, it's not there within OpenSearch. They either have to go to Elastic or we need to write it. So creating that documentation or creating examples of how this works is very helpful for other people. If you have a problem, most likely other people have problems too. And just being involved makes a big difference. Anything else you want to add? Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to just put this up here. Please connect with us. We have a QR code to check out Instaclustr and find us on Twitter or LinkedIn. And thank you for attending. And after we hopefully get some applause, we'll take any questions you guys have. Thank you. Any questions before I start asking you all questions? Okay. First person to raise their hand, why did you come to this session? What interested you about this topic? Sure.
I'm actually interested in more involved in documentation side of things. To be fair, I've been doing a lot of content third party, and I think it's time to get those first party content.
Awesome. Yeah. And like I said, it's so easy to just find something that you're passionate about, find a topic that you're interested in, and write it, right? You don't have to be an expert across the board. People don't have to know you. You just follow the process of doing an issue and a pull request, and that gets merged in.
Yeah, I'd say the community is really helpful as well and very responsive. What we've found is when we do raise an issue, it actually always gets addressed or triaged, or at least commented on. So I think that's really good as well.
What did you come here to hear that you didn't hear and want to talk about? Yeah, in the back.
Can you give an example of some contributions that Instaclustr has contributed to OpenSearch?
Yeah, sure. I don't have any, I won't say an exhaustive list, but I think that example with the index creation with cross-cluster replication. So the customer had a need to have a multi-region disaster recovery capability, but it wasn't perfect the way that it was set up, because once you switch it over to the follower cluster, then you couldn't write back to or delete the index on the leader cluster. So Munir, our open source engineer, raised the issue and actually worked through to having that merge. I think maybe it was last week, got approved.
Yeah,
so,
that's just barely.
Yeah, so in the next version of OpenSearch, then that change will flow through and the customer hopefully will be happy. But yeah, no, we have made a number of contributions over the years as well, yeah.
Do you have a question as well?
Yeah, I was wondering, or I was looking for arguments for contributing, especially if it takes, sometimes it can take a bit more time than if you would have not contributed, right? I'm always looking for good arguments to put on the table to the leadership to say, okay, that's why it's actually useful, not just because of the benefit for the other people, but for ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought maybe you have some more points, but I think the points were good. Do you have any more points?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing I would reiterate is, and that's one of the things that I love about NetApp Instaclustr, is they are very community driven. They're very focused on open source, and that's one of the things that we tout, is that we do pure open source. If we're already creating this for our customers and we love open source, what makes open source great is the community contribution, right? And so it's that like not being greedy and us giving back. And it shows good faith too, right? And we've been able to make a lot of friends and build a lot of partnerships because that builds trust, right? I think trust is a big piece of this as well. So as we go through and we're creating things, our customers are happy because they see that they're being heard by us, and then others in the industry, just like I said before, like with if you are having issues or troubles with a technology or with a gap in documentation, chances are there's other people that are having those same issues. And so if you're helping one person, like this is just kind of the right thing to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Question.
Yeah.
Can you guys tell us about a little bit about the timelines between a customer identifying either a bug or getting a feature request and then that making it out to a version?
Yeah, I think it really depends what it is, obviously. If it's a smaller thing, it can be done much quicker. But the example I gave with the index deletion thing was quite a fundamental way, a change, I guess, to the plugin. So that whole process from when the customer requested, I think about, must be 4 or 5 months ago, and it's just been approved. So through to the next version of OpenSearch being released, you're probably looking at, for a major feature, something like that, like 6 months, I think, on average, which is why it's good that we can make those changes for the customer directly through our own branch if we need to, but often we'll just wait for the change to flow through because we'd prefer to not have many versions of OpenSearch running, basically. So yeah, that's a kind of typical timeline, I think.
Any last questions before we wrap up? Going, gone. Thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.